If Walter White is the mastermind, then it almost feels like the universe personally hates everyone standing next to him. The empire is his, the money is his, but somehow the trauma, the freak coincidences, and the worst possible timing always seem to land on everyone else. Because a lot of Breaking Bad deaths aren't just about bad decisions. They're about timing. One phone call a few minutes earlier, one person taking a different route, one delayed knock on the door, and some of the most devastating moments in the series never happen. Looking back, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. Jesse Pinkman is the obvious example, but he's far from the only one. Hank Schrader, Jane Margolis, Gail Betisher, Andrea, Mike Ehrmantraut, and even Nacho Varga all find themselves on the receiving end of the exact worst version of events. Different stories, same outcome, they were just a few moments away from surviving. So that's what we're going to track. Character by character, we're going to examine the moments where fate, timing, and sheer bad luck collide, and ask one question every single time: how close were they to making it out? Because once you realize just how narrow the margins were, it becomes a lot harder to believe these people were simply getting what they deserved. So, let's go back to the beginning and find out which Breaking Bad character was truly the most unlucky. So to really talk about unlucky characters, we have to draw a line. Breaking Bad is absolutely a show about consequences. You cook meth, you lie, you manipulate people, bad things are going to find you. That part is obvious. But here's the thing, the show doesn't just punish bad decisions, it weaponizes random chance, timing, and coincidence to decide who actually pays the full bill. Two people make the same mistake, and the universe shrugs at one while it absolutely steamrolls the other. Think about it. Walt spends entire seasons walking into situations that should kill him. Tuco's desert rage, Gus's quiet suspicion, the cousins literally stalking his house. Yet over and over, some tiny variable breaks his way. Hank gets a phone call at the exact right second. Gus turns around a split second too late. The bomb goes off in the one room Walt needs it to. Now compare that to Jesse. Every time he tries to crawl towards something decent, timing crushes him. He decides to get clean with Jane, and the one night they relapse is the exact night Walt shows up. He finally tries to leave the game with Andrea and Brock in his life, and that's precisely when Hank needs leverage. Same world, same city, totally different luck. So for this episode, we're going to use a simple lens: choice, competence, and chance. What did they choose? How capable were they at surviving this world? And then, how much did the universe just flip a coin against them? Because it's one thing to say, Hank was reckless. It's another to look at the RV stakeout bathroom break and admit that a full career's worth of detective work got undone by his bladder. Some characters, like Walt and Gus, are obviously smart and ruthless, but they're also repeatedly protected by insane fortune. Gus only needs Victor to be seen once at the chemical supply store for his whole Gale plan to accelerate perfectly into Walt's favor. To be fair, Gus is careful, but still, another missed opportunity for the universe to punish Walt, and it just doesn't. On the other side, you have people like Hank, who actually tries to do the right thing and gets sidelined by a parking lot ambush, a warning call, and one brutal coin toss that leaves him paralyzed instead of dead or completely fine. Or Gale, who lives a meticulous, boring, safe life and loses the lottery of which chemist does Gus keep, in the worst way possible. So here's the recurring question we're going to keep asking. If you reran the same day 10 times, how many timelines does this character walk away okay? And how many does the universe crush them anyway? Hear me out. That's how we separate tragedy from cosmic bullying. And we're going to be a little ruthless with it. We're not just listing sad moments, we're ranking how unfair the universe is to each person compared to what they actually deserve. Starting with the people who seem cursed from the moment they step on screen. So if we're talking cursed from frame 1, you kind of have to start with Jesse Pinkman. He walks into the show already losing, but not in the way people remember. He's not Tuco level unhinged. He's not Gus level terrifying. He's a screw-up with a heart. Jesse's starting point. Small-time dealer, mid-level idiot, low-level threat. He's cooking trash meth under the name Cap'n Cook, cutting it with chili powder like that's an innovation. He's not good at this. But here's the thing. His life, at the time, is still survivable. He's the kind of guy who could bounce between his parents' house, a random crash pad, and some loser friends, drifting in and out of petty crime without ever becoming a cartel chew toy. You see it in season 1. He's sloppy, but he's not cruel. He jokes around, he panics easily, he clearly doesn't have the stomach for real violence. Think about it. In another version of this story, Jesse ages out of the game, gets busted for weed a couple times, and ends up selling used cars. That's his ceiling. That's his floor. Then the universe draws his name. Of all the former students in Albuquerque, the one Hank's raid flushes out the window is Jesse Pinkman. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong roof. Walt looks up, recognizes Pinkman, and suddenly this mediocre burnout is tethered to a man about to speedrun a midlife supervillain arc. That's not just a bad decision, that's cosmic bad luck disguised as a coincidence. The first cook with Emilio and Crazy 8 is where you really feel the pattern locking in. This was supposed to be simple. Jesse brings the distribution, Walt brings the chemistry. Everybody makes rent. Instead, Emilio recognizes Walt from the bust, Jesse gets dragged to the desert, beaten, threatened, and forced to watch his new partner improvise murder with phosphine gas. He almost dies, loses his car, wrecks his house momentum, and ends that day crawling through the dirt in his underwear. As business launches go, it's a red flag from the universe. And to be fair, Jesse keeps trying to stabilize. After his parents kick him out, he scrambles for new places to live. He patches things up with Combo and Skinny Pete, he tries to keep the product moving, he even humors Walt's constant lectures about the business. Every time he gets a tiny bit of footing, something blindsides him. Emilio's rage. Crazy 8 surviving the gas. Walt deciding on a whim that they're going to dissolve a body in acid in Jesse's bathtub. That's the pattern. Jesse reaches for normal. The universe hands him a brick. He wants a house. It literally collapses through the ceiling. He wants a simple cook. He gets kidnapping and corpses. And we're still only in the bruise and humiliation phase. Because hear me out, these early disasters are just warm-ups. The real cosmic bullying hasn't even started yet. The deaths around him, the near misses with prison, the times he should absolutely be executed but isn't, that's where Jesse's bad luck stops being sad and starts feeling supernatural. And the next phase of his life makes this stretch look almost merciful. And right when you think it can't get worse for him, the universe drops Jesse into the ATM house. This isn't a cartel lab, it's not some high-level operation, it's a rotting house in a bad neighborhood where he's just trying to collect a few $100. On paper, low stakes. In practice, it's one of the most cursed locations in the entire show. The setup is simple. Jesse goes to get his money from Spooge and his partner. He walks in and instantly, every red flag you can imagine is screaming. Trash everywhere, needles on the floor, the walls basically sweating filth, and then the real clue that this place is already a crime scene. The kid. That little boy just wandering around, silent, neglected, like the house itself has swallowed him. Now think about it. Jesse could do what a lot of TV meth dealers would do. Beat the parents. Pull a gun. Escalate. Instead, he does the opposite. He tries to keep things calm, tries to reason with two people who are way past reason, and the only time you see real anger from him is when he's defending the kid from their abuse. Here's the thing. This is one of Jesse's most moral episodes. He doesn't kill anyone. He doesn't torture anyone. He literally takes breaks from threatening them to make sure the kid is okay, to park him in another room with a TV, to shield him from what's going on. For a criminal, his priorities are kind of evident. And yet the universe still finds a way to splash blood all over him. The ATM scene is pure freak physics. Spooge is messing with the machine, his partner knocks it, the weight shifts, and boom, his head gets crushed. Jesse doesn't push it. He doesn't even touch it in that final moment. But if you walked in 2 minutes later and saw a dead guy under an ATM, a strung out partner, and a known meth dealer on the property, who looks guilty at the time? From the outside, it's obvious how this plays. Violent dealer comes to collect. Argument, brutal improvised execution. The story basically writes itself, and Jesse is the headline. That's the joke the universe keeps telling with him. Even when he's trying to be a semi-decent criminal, he gets framed by circumstance. He has to wipe prints, coach the kid, stage his own exit so the boy can tell the cops some man rescued him. It's damage control for a disaster he didn't actually cause, but still, Another missed opportunity for the world to see Jesse as anything other than a walking mugshot. And emotionally, he's the one left holding the bag, the kid's face, the blood, the knowledge that if he hadn't shown up, these people might still be alive. But also that his presence probably saved that child's life. That's the pattern starting to lock in. Jesse steps into someone else's mess, the worst possible outcome happens, and he walks away with all the guilt and all the risk. Hear me out, the ATM house is the prototype. Later, the stakes get higher, the body's more personal, but this is the first time the universe says, even your good intentions are going to cost you. And from here on out, every time Jesse tries to do the right thing in the wrong world, that cosmic anvil just keeps dropping closer. And if the ATM house is the prototype, Jane is the full-scale tragedy. Because with Jane, the show stops hinting and just screams at you, sometimes one tiny stupid moment is all it takes to end a life. Jane Margolis. On paper, she's actually one of the more hopeful people in Jesse's orbit. She's in recovery, she's running the apartment complex, she's a talented artist, and at the start, she's the one setting boundaries. Remember how she refuses to let Jesse move in as a tenant until he gets his act together and pays the rent? That's not just a meet cute. It's a clue that she genuinely wants stability for herself and for him. For a while, she's good for Jesse. She pushes him to be responsible, she tries to keep the heroine out of the picture, and you can tell she's seen where that road goes. But here's the thing, recovery in this universe is like walking a tightrope while the writers throw bricks. Her dad, the pressure, the money, Jesse's world creeping in, all of that chips away at her. Her relapse isn't random. It's a mix of choice, vulnerability, and really bad influences lining up at the worst time. But the part that turns Jane from a tragic addict into one of the most unlucky characters in the entire series comes down to one night, one overdose, one roll. When she and Jesse shoot up, what's happening at the time doesn't feel like a death sentence, it feels like escape. They're high, they're happy, they're talking about running away. And then she starts to overdose. The obvious danger is the heroin. The lethal danger is gravity. Think about it. If she'd stayed on her side like Jesse, her airway probably stays clear. If Walt had knocked on that door 10 minutes earlier, he walks in on them still conscious. 10 minutes later, maybe Jesse wakes up to her in distress and calls 911. Instead, we get the microscopic surgical version of bad luck. She rolls onto her back at the exact moment Walt is standing in the doorway. And this is where the universe gets cruelly specific. Because it's Walt. Of all people. The same guy whose product put her there is now the only witness, the only possible savior. He rushes forward, he instinctively goes to help, and then he stops. That hesitation is the most suspicious, chilling beat. A random physical misfortune turns into a moral horror show because Walt decides this is useful. To be fair, you can argue choice all day here, but still, another missed opportunity for the universe to be even slightly kind. Different timing, different position, different witness, and Jane maybe lives. Instead, the cosmos picks the worst possible configuration, a survivable overdose, a fatal roll, and Heisenberg watching it happen. And the fallout? That one night doesn't just kill Jane. It detonates Jesse's life, poisons his bond with Walt, and sets up a chain of guilt that's going to drag him into even darker places. You think this is rock bottom for his luck? Hear me out, the universe is just getting warmed up. But pause for a second. We've been riding Jesse's misery train, but think about it. Is he actually the unluckiest person in this story? Or is it Jane? Zoom out. Jesse's bad luck is like a slow, grinding storm. It stretches across seasons. Rehab, relapse, getting clean with Andrea, losing Andrea, getting enslaved by neo-Nazis. It's constant, it's brutal, it's death by 1,000 cuts. You watch his life get chipped away piece by piece until there's almost nothing left. Jane's luck works differently. It's a single lightning strike. One night. One relapse. One roll onto her back. Her entire arc goes from recovering artist with a plan to tragic obituary in a few hours of screen time? At the time, it almost feels too fast. But here's the thing, that speed is the point. The show compresses all her bad luck into this insanely concentrated moment. Now play with alternate timelines for a second. Same apartment, same heroine, same overdose. In how many versions of that night does Jane just wake up? She throws up, she's sick, she's shaken, but she survives. And how many does she actually follow through on that will go to rehab, will get clean speech and drag Jesse with her, or cash out the money, move away, and we cut to some artsy Portland tattoo shop where she's fine and Jesse is just the guy who got away. Instead, we get the one reality where she rolls onto her back, not her side. The one where Walt, of all people, walks in at that exact second. The one where he freezes, then decides to watch. No CPR, no 911, not even a panicked attempt that fails, just Heisenberg, quietly letting the coin land on its worst possible face. Narratively, it's a pivot. The show needs Jane's death to shatter Jesse, to push Walt over a moral cliff he can't climb back from, to set up things like the plane crash and Jesse's spiral. Without that moment, the whole structure of Breaking Bad looks different. But in World, it's not a prophecy. It's not karma. It's a horrific, avoidable fluke that feels almost too obvious as a red flag about how this universe treats certain people. So which is worse, chronic bad luck like Jesse's where the universe keeps taking shots at you over years, or Jane's one-night catastrophe where every bad variable lines up in a single, unwinnable configuration? Is it crueler to be slowly worn down, or to have everything stolen in seconds when you were finally climbing out? Hear me out. This is the question sitting under the whole most unlucky debate. And we're not done with it. As we bring in Hank, Gail, Andrea, and a few other walking disasters, we're going to keep coming back to this Jane versus Jesse scale and see whose coin flips were truly the worst. Gail Botisher is where that Jane versus Jesse scale gets weird. Because with Gail, you're not arguing over self-destruction or bad choices. You're looking at a guy who does almost everything right and still ends up on the floor of his apartment, bleeding out next to a potted plant. Gail's whole vibe is caution. He's methodical. Polite, he drinks herbal tea, he sings along to Italian opera while calibrating equipment, he recycles. This is not Tuco. This is not even Jesse. To him, chemistry is art. It's craft. He's excited about perfect yield and clean burns, not about territory or intimidation. Think about it. His big dream is basically to be left alone in a state-of-the-art lab with good equipment and good music. But here's the thing, even Gail has a line he's willing to cross. Working for Gus is a moral compromise, absolutely, but from Gail's perspective, it's the safest version of a bad deal. He's not on a street corner, he's not in some RV in the desert, he's in a pristine underground lab with a boss who seems calm, controlled, and professional. If you're going to cook meth, this looks like the least chaotic, least I might get shot in a parking lot option available. At the time, that choice even seems smart. Gus runs a tight ship. No random violence, no obvious red flags. Gail probably tells himself that his product reduces impurities, reduces harm, maybe even improves things. It's delusional, but it fits his careful, rational brain. He's not a gangster, he's a technician who thinks the lab wall is a shield. And then one tiny, stupid variable blows that shield apart. Victor gets seen at the chemical supply store. That's it. One employee remembers his face. Suddenly Gus feels exposed, the clock starts ticking, and all of Walt's slow burn scheming has to happen right now. To be fair, Victor's mistake isn't world-ending on its own. But in this ecosystem of paranoia, it's enough. Gus needs Walt and Jesse out of the picture, he needs a full-time cook who can replace them, and that turns Gail from trusted backup into necessary sacrifice. Gail has no clue this is happening. While Gus, Walt, and Mike are playing three-dimensional chess, Gail is watering his plants. Literally, you see him in that final scene, barefoot, listening to music, tending to his little green corner of the universe. The guy is living the quiet domestic version of a super lab fantasy. Then there's a knock at the door. Jesse shows up shaking, gun in hand, looking like he's about to pass out. This isn't some cool professional hitman. It's a terrified kid who has been emotionally blackmailed into pulling the trigger. Gail opens the door, confused, still polite. He recognizes Jesse, realizes what's happening a split second too late, and begs. Not for revenge, not with anger, just raw fear. And that's Gail's tragedy. He doesn't snitch, he doesn't flip, he doesn't make a big, arrogant mistake. He's simply the most convenient piece to remove in a war between other men. Wrong boss, wrong backup plan, wrong night. Hear me out. If Victor isn't spotted, if Gus isn't rushed, Gale probably lives. But still, another missed opportunity for the universe to show mercy. Keep that in mind as we move to Hank, because Gale's quiet. Unlucky death casts a long shadow over the man who will eventually read his lab notes and still almost miss the obvious. The butterfly effect. That's what really kills Gale. Not a cartel hit, not some big betrayal. A random sighting in a strip mall chemical supply store. Picture that scene. Gale and Walt are shopping like the world's nerdiest criminals, comparing beakers and tubing. Outside, Victor is doing his job, just watching. But inside, the clerk clocks Gale's weirdly specific order, clocks Victor lurking, and suddenly this isn't just a quirky science purchase anymore. It's suspicious. The clerk calls the cops. The cops roll up. Victor has to bail, and Gus's supposedly invisible operation is now on a camera, in a report, in someone's memory. At the time, it feels minor. No one gets arrested. No lab is busted. But think about it, that one sighting proves to Gus that his ghost status has a crack. If Victor can be seen, Gus can be traced. And the most obvious thread? The cook. Here's the thing about Gus's mindset. This is a man who lives for control. He runs a fast food empire as cover, keeps his hands clean, uses proxies for everything. So when Victor tells him, yeah, they saw me, cops showed up, that's not just a red flag, that's sirens. That's my trusted guy put his face near my chemist and my product. Suddenly, every variable connected to that lab looks like a liability, and Gus does the math in the coldest way possible. Walt and Jesse? Replaceable? The formula? Reproducible, Gale? The perfect loyal student who can cook 99% on his own. So if the cops ever follow Victor, or the clerk ever remembers a face, Gus cannot afford Walt and Jesse hanging around as extra evidence. He needs one cook, one story, one clean link. Now flip it. Imagine Victor never gets seen. No clerk gets a bad feeling, no squad car pulls up, no report gets filed. Gus still wants Walt gone eventually, sure, but he's not rushed. Gale keeps training, keeps improving, keeps singing in his apartment about Major Tom and water filters. Walt and Jesse either get phased out quietly or killed on Gus's schedule when it's tidy. Different day, different scene, different body on the floor. But because Victor's face is in the wrong place at the wrong time, miles away from Gale's apartment, the timetable snaps. Gus has to accelerate the plan. Walt panics, weaponizes Jesse, and suddenly this gentle tea-drinking chemist is staring down the barrel of a gun he never saw coming. Gale doesn't die because he's greedy, or sloppy, or disloyal. He dies because a guy he barely knows once stood outside a store. Hear me out. That's the show's cruelty in one move. One small misstep by Victor randomly assigns a death sentence to Gale, who never even knew the clue existed. But still, another missed opportunity for the universe to spare someone who did almost everything right. And that pattern? One person's tiny mistake detonating someone else's life? You're going to see it all over again when we get to Hank's investigation, where every near miss and bad break pushes him closer to the truth and closer to his own unlucky end. Hank Schrader is where the universe's bad timing stops being background noise and turns into a full-on curse. Because on paper, this guy should be the one person Walt can't outrun. Hank is competent. He's driven. He's the kind of DA agent who actually likes his job and is good at it. Think about it. He takes down Tuco, tracks cartel movements, sniffs out Gus Fring when nobody else even thinks the chicken guy is suspicious. In any other show, Hank is the unstoppable force that ends the meth empire by season 2. But here's the thing about Hank in Breaking Bad. Every time he's about to win, the universe quietly moves the finish line. Start with the RV. The stakeout. Hank follows the clues, finds Jesse's rolling lab, and he's literally parked outside while Walt and Jesse are trapped inside, panicking this should be game over. Instead, one bathroom break and a fake phone call later, Hank drives away. Laughing at his own paranoia while the real Heisenberg is holding his breath 10 feet away. It's absurd. It's also another missed opportunity that would have ended the story right there. Then you've got the Tuco manhunt. Hank chases the lead, tracks Tuco to the desert, and shows up just after Walt and Jesse's chaotic showdown. Tuco's dead, The RV is gone. And what does Hank get? PTSD, a promotion, and zero idea that his own brother-in-law was in that gunfight. At the time, Hank looks like a hero. But to you, on rewatch, it's evident he's always arriving one scene too late. And it's not because his instincts are bad. His instincts are actually scary good. He jokes about Walt being the devil in that early poolside scene. He feels something off about Walt's money and his absences. He's the first one to really sense Gus Fring has a double life. To be fair, most people would never suspect the polite chemistry teacher or the fast food philanthropist. Hank does. He just keeps getting slammed with distractions, new cases, promotions, office politics, Marie's shoplifting, his own injury. Hear me out. The cruelest part is how he finally cracks the case. It's not some brilliant pattern analysis, no corkboard with red string. It's a bathroom. A family cookout. Hank sits down, picks up a random book, and sees Gail's dedication to WW. That's it. Years of missed clues, and the big revelation comes from reading on the toilet. It's funny for half a second, then you realize how unlucky that is for him. The one time the timing finally lines up, it's pointing straight at his own doom. Because Hank's bad luck doesn't stay professional. When the cousins come for him, that anonymous warning call turns what should have been a quick execution into something worse. A brutal shootout, crippling injuries, and trauma that haunts every decision he makes after. The near misses stop being harmless and start costing him pieces of his body, his confidence, and eventually, his life. And the darkest part? Hank's timing curse is about to collide with Walt's empire in the most brutal way possible, where one more almost will decide who walks out of the desert at all. Hank's worst timing curse hits its peak in that parking lot. He survives the cartel, but the way he survives is almost crueler than just dying on the spot. The build-up matters. At this point, Hank is already cracked. He's fresh off beating Jesse, suspended, humiliated, and spiraling. His ego's taken a hit, his badge is in question, and he's not the cocky Dia hero anymore. You can see it in that scene. He's distracted, fumbling with his phone, trying to talk to Marie, not scanning his surroundings like the trained agent he is. For a guy who's usually hypervigilant, that's a huge red flag. And that's exactly when the cousins make their move. Silent, methodical, walking up behind him with an axe and a gun like they're already carving his name into a tombstone. At the time, if nothing interrupts that moment, Hank is gone. No fight, no shootout, just one clean, unlucky execution. Then the phone rings. The anonymous warning call from Gus is one of the most twisted lucky breaks in the entire show. The voice literally tells him, "You have 1 minute." Think about it. Without that exact timing, down to those few seconds, Hank never even turns his head. He doesn't draw, he doesn't ram the car, he doesn't crawl for the gun. He just dies in his SUV, clueless about who pulled the trigger. But here's the thing. The call only buys him just enough time to fight back, not enough time to actually escape. He scrambles, panics, digs for his gun, burns precious seconds, and by the time he reacts, the cousins are already on him. He manages to outthink them in the moment, using the car, the bullets, the dropped gun. It's impressive. It's also physically catastrophic. In another timeline, the call comes 2 minutes earlier. Hank drives away, shaken but unscathed, maybe even catches the cousins before they get into position. In another, it never comes, and he dies instantly. No suffering, no rehab, no long, slow collapse of his confidence. But we get the middle path. He lives, but he's shattered. His legs are ruined, his mobility's gone. His macho identity as the unstoppable agent, also gone. And that's where the bad luck really digs in. Surviving should be a win, but the universe basically hands Hank a deal. You can live, but your body, your marriage, and your mental health are going to pay for it. Hear me out. This isn't just physical injury. It sidelines his career momentum, traps him in that bedroom. It makes every future clue about Heisenberg feel like a personal lifeline instead of just another case. So when he later clings to the Heisenberg investigation, it's not just duty, it's compensation. The ambush doesn't just wound him, it loads every future decision with desperation, which, as we'll see next, makes his final desert gamble feel almost inevitable. But zoom out for a second, because this is where Hank's story quietly shifts from tough Dia guy chasing a kingpin to maybe the unluckiest man in the entire show. Hear me out. If Walter's arc is about control, Hank's is about timing absolutely refusing to cooperate. Look at his whole journey as a chain of almosts. He almost nails Heisenberg in season 1 when he raids Jesse's cook site. But Walt just happens to be hiding in the shadows and slips away. He almost connects the missing lab equipment to Walt at the time, but still another missed opportunity. The RV stakeout? Hank is literally outside Walt's mobile lab, circling ready to bust in. One suspicious phone call from Marie sends him to the junkyard gate, and by the time he comes back, the RV is gone. That's not just ego, that's the universe trolling him. Then the ambush. The cousins almost kill him, but only because he gets that anonymous warning call at the exact worst possible moment. If they catch him by surprise, he dies instantly. If the call comes 10 minutes earlier, he stays home and never gets paralyzed. Instead, he survives badly injured. Sidelined just long enough for Walt and Gus to build their empire. Think about it, fate doesn't take Hank out, it just delays him, over and over, until every clue he missed feels like a personal insult. Compare that to characters like Jane and Gale. Their bad luck is brutal, but it's concentrated. Jane has one catastrophic night, she relapses, rolls onto her back, and suddenly her entire life comes down to the angle of her body and Walt standing in the doorway. Gale lives this meticulous, safe, almost boring existence. Then Victor gets spotted at the chemical supply, Gus panics, and Gale's name gets moved to the top of the hit list. One decision, one knock at the door, and that's it. Hank doesn't get that kind of clean tragedy. His misfortune is slow burn. Ongoing, he keeps getting red flags about Walt, the second cell phone, the duffel bag joke, the WW initials, and yes. His ego and macho bias absolutely help him ignore them. To be fair, he does underestimate Walt in a huge way. But here's the thing. Every time he's about to break through that bias, something external steps in. A car crash staged by Walt. A promotion to El Paso. Jack's convoy rolling into the desert at the exact second Hank finally wins. So which is worse? To die in one unlucky moment like Jane or Gale, or to be strung along the way Hank is, repeatedly kneecapped by timing until the moment you finally get it right, and that victory shows up 5 minutes too late to save you? That's the question his whole arc quietly asks. Because Hank's last stand in the desert isn't just a shootout. It's the final, devastating example of his war with timing, and in the next section, we're going to break down exactly how that scene turns his biggest win into his ultimate loss. So let's go to that desert. Because if you just freeze the scene at the right moment, it actually looks like Hank finally beats the universe. The arrest. The cuffs. The money right there in the dirt. On paper, it's perfect. Hank follows the GPS clue, tracks Walt to the exact spot his fortune is buried, and does what he's been trying to do since WW and Gale's notebook first rattled him. He reads Walt, plays him, and finally gets him. No more missed, half-formed suspicions. It's all out in the open. Think about it. This is the guy who got blown up in a parking lot, paralyzed. Stuck on the toilet having his epiphany. Every time he closed in, timing slapped him in the face. And yet here he is, standing on his own 2 feet, telling Walt, "You're the smartest guy I ever met, and you're too stupid to see, you know the line." It's Hank's thesis statement. He solved the puzzle. In a fair universe, this should be his victory lap. He's survived the cousins. He's pushed through rehab. He's clawed his way back into the field after being sidelined and humiliated. At the time, if you pause right when he calls Marie from the car, it feels like the show is finally letting him win. The case is wrapped, the kingpin is in custody, and the desert is basically one giant crime scene gift wrapped for the dia. But here's the thing. The desert is also where Breaking Bad weaponizes bad luck the hardest. The unlucky variable is already in motion, Walt's panicked call to Jack. Hank doesn't even know that clue exists. He's already won the intellectual war when that phone rings. Walt is begging, bargaining, trying to cancel the hit he ordered on himself 5 minutes earlier. It would almost be funny if it wasn't about to get everyone killed. To be fair, calling in a neo-Nazi cavalry to guard your drug money is an obvious red flag for how far gone Walt is, but Hank never gets the luxury of processing that. Jack's convoy rolls up like fate on 4 sets of off-road tires. And this is what makes Hank's death so brutal. It's not about his competence suddenly failing. It's not another missed opportunity where he misreads a clue or lets Walt talk his way out. The case is already solved. The confession is on tape. The money is located. The suspect is in cuffs. External firepower and timing just crash straight through his victory. Hear me out. Hank dies as the most successful detective in the entire Heisenberg investigation, and nobody ever knows it. His body ends up in an unmarked grave next to the very barrels that prove he was right. The money disappears. The evidence is buried. Officially, he's just a missing agent who went out into the desert and never came back. That's the bitter irony. Hank finally wins, but the story writes him out as if he lost. And the worst part? The universe isn't done doing this to people. Because if Hank is the guy who solves the puzzle too late, Jesse Pinkman is the guy who keeps surviving just long enough to suffer the consequences of everyone else's bad timing. And that brings us to the cruelest pattern in this universe. The people who just want a quiet life get hit the hardest. Andrea Cantillo is that pattern in human form. You meet her the same way Jesse does, at Narcotics Anonymous. She's young, a little guarded, clearly been through it, but she's trying. She's got Brock to take care of, she's trying to stay clean, she's showing up to meetings. At the time, she doesn't read like a future cartel casualty. She reads like someone the show might actually let escape. For Jesse, she's a lifeline. That's the obvious part. Andrea represents this alternate timeline where he's not the burnout meth cook, he's just the guy helping a single mom with her kids' homework. Think about it. Dinners at her place, playing video games with Brock, talking about normal problems like rent and school instead of bodies and acid barrels. The show dangles this clue right in front of you. Here is the exit ramp. But here's the thing about Breaking Bad. Every exit is wired with explosives. Andrea doesn't chase the game. The game comes to her door. Jesse's money shows up as help for her family. His weird disappearances start to stack up. She gets questioned by the DA when Hank needs leverage on Jesse. None of that is her choice. She's not cooking, not dealing, not even asking questions. She's just attached to the wrong guy. Then the universe takes a darker turn, Brock's poisoning. On paper, it looks like a random, horrible medical emergency. In reality, it's Walter using a child as a chess piece to manipulate Jesse. Andrea has no idea she's now in the blast radius of a war between Heisenberg and Gus. She's just a mom in a hospital room, terrified, while 2 men silently argue over what the poison means. To be fair, from her perspective, nothing is suspicious. From ours, every second of that storyline is a massive red flag that she's not getting out clean. And yet, she keeps trying to build something stable. She lets Jesse back in. She believes his half-truths. She forgives his absences. Hear me out. In another show, that kind of loyalty is rewarded. Here, it's just another missed opportunity for the universe to show mercy. Which leads to one of the most chilling scenes in the series. Todd at the door. The small talk. The awkward smile. He's polite, almost shy, asking for Jesse like he's a neighbor returning a lawnmower. The camera stays outside, the porch light is warm, nothing about it screams cartel execution. Then he steps back, apologizes, and shoots her in the head. She doesn't run. She doesn't fight. She doesn't even know why. That's the point. Andrea doesn't betray anyone, she doesn't make a key mistake, she doesn't stumble onto some big clue. Her only crime is loving a man the wrong people want to control. And if Andrea shows you how love gets weaponized, the next character shows you what happens when your entire identity becomes someone else's favorite weapon. Collateral damage. That's what Andrea is on paper. But when you really sit with that scene on the porch, it stops feeling like a cartel hit and starts feeling like the universe picking the one lever that will hurt Jesse the most. Todd and Jack spell out their logic without ever needing a long speech. They've already got Jesse in chains. He's in the pit, literally. He can't run, he can't fight back, he can't call Saul. So why go after Andrea at all? Because they don't need to neutralize a threat, they need to crush a soul. They look at Jesse's life, scan for the most emotionally loaded target, and land on the woman who represents his last attempt at normalcy. It's efficient, but it's also sadistic. Think about it. They don't pick Brock, even though that would be scarier in a traditional TV villain way. They don't drag out Jesse's parents or his brother, who are safely parked in their own denial. They go straight for the one person who pulled Jesse out of the party houses and the junkies and gave him a couch, a kid, and a shot at being a decent human being. That's not strategy in the abstract, that's targeted emotional warfare. But here's the thing. In any remotely merciful version of this story, Andrea never dies. Once Jessie is captured, they could have quietly relocated her, paid her off, ignored her completely. To be fair, if this were a different show, that's exactly what would happen. She'd just be one more off-screen name Jessie can't call anymore. Sad, but survivable. Instead, the narrative twists the knife. It doesn't just keep her in the crosshairs, it walks her onto the porch and pulls the trigger right in front of Jessie. And Andrea never even gets context. No villain monologue. No, this is because of Jessie. Todd barely looks at her. He says her name, she turns, and it's over. Quick, impersonal, clinical, she doesn't know who Jessie really is. She doesn't know what he's being forced to cook or that he's watching. She dies confused, probably thinking this is some random mugging gone wrong. It's one of the cruelest parts of the whole thing. The person paying the price isn't even allowed to understand the bill. For Jesse, that's the final cosmic red flag. Every time he reaches out, the universe slaps his hand with a bullet. Jane overdoses while he's inches away. Combo gets shot on the corner he put him on. Brock gets poisoned. And now Andrea is executed for the crime of being someone he loves. Hear me out. At this point, it's not just that bad things happen around Jesse. It's that the people he cares about keep getting converted into leverage. His love becomes a weapon, and he's never the one holding it. Andrea's fate is the show telling you Jesse's bad luck isn't confined to his own body. It radiates. It infects anyone who shares screen time with his better instincts. And if the universe can do that to someone as innocent as Andrea, what does that mean for the people who walk into his life already broken? And that brings us to the guy who's supposed to be immune to all this chaos. If Jesse is the universe's chew toy, Mike Ehrmantraut is the one man who looks like he read the script, underlined every red flag, and planned around it. Mike's whole persona is built on control. Ex-cop, surveillance expert, the guy who walks into a war zone with a first aid kit, a go bag, and 3 exit strategies. He's meticulous, emotionally flat. Always thinking 3 steps ahead, so he never has to raise his voice, let alone his pulse. When amateurs get killed because they miss an obvious clue or panic at the wrong moment, Mike is the one cleaning it up and quietly judging them. And for most of the series, it actually works. Think about it. When the cousins come after him, he's already watching their car. When Jesse spirals, Mike has him in rehab work mode before Walt can even finish a lie. He's got offshore accounts, dead drops, stash houses, and a literal bug in Hank's office. Bad luck hits, but with Mike it just feels like another Tuesday. Something goes wrong, and he already has the contingency plan loaded. But here's the thing, in this universe, you don't get to dodge fate forever. The turning point is that list. Gus's guys in prison. The names that connect the old empire to the new one. After Gus dies, the dia pressure spikes. Hank's circling, the lawyers are nervous, and those guys are suddenly a row of ticking time bombs. If even one flips, the whole operation, past and present, gets dragged into the light. Mike knows this. He's not in denial like Walt. He's trying to cash out, disappear, and make sure his people are paid. The list is his last piece of leverage, the one thing he can still trade to keep everyone quiet while he walks away. At the time, it looks like classic Mike, dangerous, but controlled. Then we get the Riverside confrontation. Walt shows up desperate, demanding the names right now. Mike, already annoyed, tells him exactly what to do, calm down, wait, get the list from Lydia. It's clean, it's simple, it keeps them separated. And it would have worked. To be fair, Mike underestimates just how fragile Walt's ego is in that moment. Walt can't stand being told he's not needed. He can't stand that Mike is done with him. One more insult, one more reminder that all of this was your fault, and Walt snaps. No grand plan. No chessboard. He just pulls the gun and fires through the car window. And the cosmic joke? If Walt had taken a breath, driven away, and called Lydia, Mike lives. The list still gets handled, the problem still gets solved. Mike dies not because he missed some huge suspicious detail, but because one impatient man couldn't wait a few minutes. So if the universe can casually erase its most prepared player like that, what chance does someone who isn't a professional have when bad luck comes calling next? And that brings us to the ghost in Mike's story. The person who's barely on screen in his final stretch but quietly rewrites the odds against him, Lydia. Lydia Rodarte Quayle. On paper, she's just a jittery corporate liaison. In reality, she's the single most fragile link in the supply chain. And she knows it. She's terrified of being killed, she's convinced everyone is about to turn on her, and her solution is always the same: preemptively remove the threat. Think about it. Her first big move with Mike is literally begging him to massacre 10 guys in prison so they can't talk. At the time, Mike reads her correctly as anxious, but he misses how far that anxiety will go. To be fair, he's dealt with panicky civilians before. He's used to being the adult in the room, the one who can keep things compartmentalized while he backs out clean. His plan is simple: get his money, get the list of names handled, and walk away from Walt and Lydia forever. No drama, no loose ends. But here's the thing about Mike's read on the room. He underestimates both sides of the equation. On one end, you've got Walt, who's getting more volatile by the day, taking every slight as a personal attack. On the other, you've got Lydia, who is so desperate to survive, she'll cooperate with literally anyone who offers her a lifeline. Mike assumes he can keep those two separated long enough to exit. That assumption is the real red flag. The list of names is where all of this curdles. That sheet of paper becomes a cursed object. Whoever touches it is suddenly on a countdown. Lydia needs it gone so she can sleep at night. Walt needs it so he can keep his empire safe and his ego intact. And Mike? Mike decides to hold it back as leverage, one last bargaining chip to control the situation. Hear me out. The second he does that, he stops being the fixer and becomes the obstacle. Walt meeting Lydia behind Mike's back is the quiet pivot. Off-screen, away from Mike's watchful eyes, those two unstable personalities find common ground. She hands over clues, resources, options. He offers protection and a path forward without Mike. By the time Mike realizes how fast Walt is escalating, Walt already knows the names, already feels betrayed, already has his gun. That's the tragedy. Mike doesn't die because he missed some obvious tail or walked into a bad tactical position. He dies because he misreads character. He can't quite predict just how quickly Walt will jump from "I'm angry" to "I'm shooting you through a car window," especially with Lydia quietly feeding Walt's paranoia. And it proves something brutal about this universe. Even the most prepared guy in the game can't defend against the wrong personalities colliding at the worst possible moment. So when you look at other so-called professionals in this world, you have to ask, how many of them are just one Lydia-style variable away from disaster too? So let's slam the brakes for a second and line these guys up side by side, because the pattern gets way clearer when you compare them directly. Gale, Hank, Mike, three of the most competent men in this universe. Three completely different flavors of disaster. Start with Gale. On paper, he's the safest man in the game. High competence, low risk appetite. He's brewing tea, singing in Italian, setting up a pristine lab. He wants structure, rules, a stable job under Gus. At the time, he's basically the anti-Jesse. No chaos, no ego, no street drama. And yet he dies anyway, shot in his own doorway, because Victor happened to be seen at the chemical supply store, and Gus needed to move fast. Gale doesn't screw up. He just exists on the wrong flowchart branch when Gus has to choose. Then you've got Hank, also high competence but with some ego and that macho blind spot about Walt. He's smart, he's relentless, but timing keeps kicking him in the teeth. The RV stakeout where he just misses Walt and Jesse. The cousin's attack that sidelines his career. Jack's arrival in the desert, literally seconds before Hank can arrest Walt and walk away a hero. Think about it. Hank finally solves the Heisenberg puzzle, does everything by the book, and the universe responds by dropping neo-Nazis on his head. And then Mike. Very high competence, almost zero ego, just one fatal miscalculation. He trusts that he can manage Walt the way he manages everyone else. He underestimates how fast Walt will jump to murder when his money and pride are on the line. Mike does the careful thing, tries to disappear, and still gets shot because Walt's impatience boils over in a parking lot. Here's the thing, in a just universe, competence should buy you some protection. If you're methodical like Mike, cautious like Gale, or dogged like Hank, you should at least avoid the worst outcomes, right? But Breaking Bad keeps breaking that rule. These three men do so much right, and fate still steamrolls them. So ask yourself, does it feel more unfair when a careful person like Mike or Gale dies than when someone like Jesse just keeps suffering? Jesse is reckless, emotionally unstable, constantly missing obvious red flags. To be fair, he pays for it with long-term trauma instead of a quick death. But still, another missed opportunity for the universe to reward the guy who actually tries to be careful. And notice what finally takes each of them out. For Gale, it's Victor's sighting, an external screw-up that paints a target on his back. For Hank, it's Jack's arrival, a whole separate criminal ecosystem crashing into his investigation. For Mike, it's Walt's ego and impatience, not any tactical failure in the moment. Hear me out. The show is basically saying the world is hostile and other people's chaos is the real executioner. And if you think that's bleak, we haven't even touched one of the most brutal examples of cosmic cruelty yet. A man who never cooks, never deals, and still ends up responsible for a mid-air collision. We need to talk about Jane's father, Donald Margolis. On paper, he should be the safest man in the entire show. He's not a dealer, not a cop, not even a lawyer in the blast radius. He's an air traffic controller. His whole life is about routine, checklists, and making sure nothing unexpected ever happens. Think about it, this is a guy whose job is literally to prevent disaster. Every second is math and discipline. You follow the procedure, people live. You slip, people die. It's the cleanest possible cause and effect system until Breaking Bad gets involved. We meet him as Jane's dad, the strict but caring parent who seems like just another obstacle to Jesse's chaos. At the time, he feels like a side character, a plot speed bump. But here's the thing, once Jane dies, Donald quietly becomes one of the most unlucky people in the entire series. Jane's overdose doesn't just destroy Jesse, it completely shatters Donald. He's the guy who tried to pull his daughter out of addiction, who gave her rules, structure, a second chance. Then he has to walk into that apartment and find her dead. No warning. No goodbye. Just this brutal, silent image that rewires his brain on the spot. And the show doesn't give him time to grieve. He goes back to work, back to the control tower, back to a job where you cannot afford to have even one intrusive thought. But his mind is stuck in that bedroom. You can see it in his 1,000-yard stare, the way his voice wavers on the radio. Every call sign is just white noise over the sound of losing his kid. This is where bad luck weaponizes his grief. His breakdown doesn't happen at home or in a therapist's office. It happens while he's on duty managing planes over Albuquerque. One tiny lapse, one missed call, one moment where his brain blinks at the worst possible time. The result? A mid-air collision. Hundreds of people in 2 planes vaporized over the city in a fireball of twisted metal and pink teddy bear fluff. A deeply personal tragedy in one dingy apartment suddenly ripples into the sky and kills complete strangers who never even heard the name Jane. From the passenger's perspective, this is pure cosmic bad luck. They boarded a routine flight. They followed every rule. No suspicious behavior, no red flags, no obvious danger. And yet their lives intersect with one man's grief and one high school chemistry teacher's decision not to roll someone onto their side. To be fair, the show never lets you forget the chain of responsibility. Walt watches Jane die. Jane's death destroys Donald. Donald's breakdown kills hundreds. But still, another missed opportunity for mercy spirals into mass death, and the universe doesn't pause for even a second to explain itself. Hear me out. This is the moment where Breaking Bad quietly tells you that innocents are just background casualties in Walt's story. And if that's what happens to random passengers, what does that say about the people who actually stand in his way? And that brings us to the pink teddy bear. The most unsettling background extra in the entire show. You see it. You clock it. But at the time, you don't really know why your brain is screaming that something is horribly wrong. The pool. The bear. The slow drift across the water outside Walt's house. It's burned, half melted, missing one eye. This neon pink object that should belong in a kid's bedroom, not in a crime scene teaser. Every time we cut back to that pool in those black and white cold opens, the bear just floats there, aimless, while pieces of wreckage and hazmat guys fill the frame. It's almost funny how out of place it looks until you realize that's the whole point. Because here's the thing, the bear is literally a fragment of a child's life that falls out of the sky. When we finally learn it's debris from Wayfarer 515, it reframes everything. That toy was on some kid's seat. It was hugged, thrown around, probably fought over with a sibling. Then a chain of events no one on that plane could see turns it into flaming shrapnel in a stranger's backyard. Talk about bad luck weaponized. Think about it. The people on that plane don't know Walt. They don't know Jesse. They've never heard of Heisenberg. Their only crime is booking a ticket on the wrong day, yet their lives intersect with Walt's because Jane overdoses. Donald Margolis breaks down, and an air traffic controller misses a pattern on a screen. One unlucky night in a dingy bedroom becomes a mid-air collision and a ruined teddy bear in a suburban pool. The bear is innocence, scorched. It's a visual shorthand for everyone in this universe who gets crushed by decisions made way above their pay grade and way outside their understanding. It's the ATM guy's kid. It's Andrea. It's Drew Sharp on the dirt bike. These people aren't playing the meth game, but the meth game still plays them. And the show doesn't stop to give them speeches or closure, it just leaves the wreckage floating in the background. To be fair, Breaking Bad gives you clues that this is coming, the way the camera lingers on Donald's grief. The way Walt stands over Jane, watching, choosing, but still, another missed opportunity for mercy turns into this chain reaction that literally rains bodies and toys from the sky. The pink bear is the receipt. And notice where it lands, not in some cartel compound. In Walt's pristine backyard, right next to the family home he claims he's destroying himself to protect. The universe basically throws a burned up symbol of collateral damage into his pool and says, "Look what you did," and Walt just skims it out and keeps going. Hear me out. Once you see the bear as a stand-in for random innocent suffering, you start spotting smaller pink bears everywhere in the show. Little moments where fate, timing, and one person's ego casually wreck someone else's life. And some characters, like Jesse, seem to attract those moments like a curse. So if a toy can't escape becoming debris in Walt's orbit, what chance does a broken, soft-hearted meth cook really have? That's where we're going next. So if a toy can't escape becoming debris in Walt's orbit, what chance does Jesse have when the whole universe decides he's next? Jesse's prison arc is that idea pushed to the absolute limit. It's not just bad luck anymore, it's like every exit sign in his life gets ripped off the wall at once. The setup. Jesse finally does the right thing. He flips. He goes to Hank, he spills everything about Walt, and for about 5 minutes you feel like the curse might be breaking. Hank has Heisenberg cornered in the desert. Backup is on the way. Justice is finally catching up. But here's the thing. That phone call from Walt to Jack's crew, that's the cosmic coin toss going the wrong way yet again. Instead of a clean arrest, you get the shootout. Hank dies. Gomez dies. The Diaz best shot at saving Jesse vanishes in the dirt. And Jesse, who was supposed to be a protected witness, ends up dragged from under the car like a raccoon from a crawl space. He's not killed, which in most crime stories would be the obvious move. He's kept alive. That's the red flag that this isn't about practicality, it's about punishment. Think about it. A loose end who knows everything about your operation. Standard villain playbook says you put a bullet in him. Jack does the opposite. He chains Jesse up, muzzles him, and turns him into a slave cook. It's not efficient, it's sadistic. The universe doesn't let Jesse die, it signs him up for overtime suffering. The fence escape is where you really feel how rigged this is. Jesse spots the screws, times the patrols, and actually makes it to the perimeter. For a second, the show lets you breathe. Maybe this is the one lucky break. Then Todd catches him. Casually, like Jesse trying to run was just another missed chore. The punishment is brutal. He's beaten, caged even tighter, and then Todd drives him to Andrea's. Andrea's death is the cruel twist. Todd doesn't just kill her, he makes Jesse watch from the car. No sound, no warning, one quick shot. It's obvious what that moment is doing. Brock is the hostage, Andrea is the example, and Jesse's last emotional reason to hope, protecting them, is turned into a weapon against him. Hear me out. He's not only trapped physically, he's trapped morally. Any move he makes now risks another innocent life. Meanwhile, every potential savior disappears. Hank and Gomez are dead. The DEA has no clue where he is. Even Walt, the guy who once busted through doors to save Jesse from Tuco, walks away after seeing the confession tape, basically deciding Jesse's fate is deserved. To be fair, Walt is spiraling, but still, another missed opportunity for anyone to pull Jesse out. So what actually frees him? Not a plan. Not justice. Just Walt's late game guilt in the finale, when he finally decides that the one thing he can still fix is the kid he broke. Jesse's escape comes wrapped in even more blood and bodies, which is the final joke the universe plays on him. Jesse doesn't just lose people, he's forced to keep living with the knowledge that his survival keeps getting bought with someone else's life. And that sets up the real question. In a world this rigged, does getting out ever actually mean you're free? So when we cut to El Camino, that's the question hanging over every frame. After all that punishment, does Jesse finally get something that isn't coated in blood? The compound is behind him, the chains are off, but the universe of Breaking Bad doesn't suddenly become kind just because the main show ended. The premise is simple on paper. Jesse escapes the neo-Nazi compound and has one goal: survive long enough to scrape together enough cash and vanish with a new identity. No empire, no power play, just a guy trying to disappear. But think about it, even this tiny reasonable dream turns into another obstacle course built out of bad luck and other people's messes. Look at his first move. He goes straight to Skinny Pete and Badger, which is smart, but the El Camino itself is already a giant, obvious red flag sitting in their driveway. The cops are on it within hours. Every time Jesse breathes, there's already a patrol car or a news report 2 steps behind him. It's like the universe saw him get out of that cage and said, nope, you don't get a clean head start. Then you get the money hunt. The Todd apartment sequence should be a straightforward score. Instead, Jesse spends forever tearing apart walls, nearly gets caught by neighbors, and finally runs into the fake cops. These guys aren't cartel, they're not Heisenberg-level masterminds, they're just greedy nobodies who happen to show up at the same apartment on the same night. But here's the thing, for Jesse, random nobodies are just as lethal as criminal geniuses. One unlucky overlap in timing, and suddenly, he's held at gunpoint in a place that was supposed to save him. This is where Ed the Disappearer comes in as this weird, almost jarring shift. Ed is competent, calm, and, crucially, neutral. He doesn't hate Jesse, doesn't pity him, doesn't try to manipulate him. He just sets a price. You pay, you vanish. In the entire Breaking Bad universe, that's a rare stroke of good fortune, a door that actually works the way it's advertised. To be fair, even that isn't easy. Jesse has to crawl through all that chaos just to barely meet the number. When he finally makes it to Alaska, on paper, he wins. No cuffs, no cartel, no Walt. Fresh snow, a new name, a quiet truck. But still, another missed opportunity, right? Because the one thing he can't disappear from is himself. He's free, but he's alone. He's safe, but he's carrying Jane, Andrea, Brock, Hank, the kid in the lab, every scream from that compound. A new identity doesn't erase those memories, it just gives them a colder backdrop. So does this ending really balance the scales, or does it just stop the bleeding after the universe has already taken almost everything from him? Hear me out. That question gets even messier when you compare Jesse's happy ending to what the show gives other unlucky characters next, and if Jesse's escape feels like the universe finally blinking. Skylar White is what it looks like when the universe never blinks at all. Her story isn't loud like cartel shootouts, it's slow motion suffocation. Skylar, on paper, she's the normal one. Suburban mom, bookkeeper, writing short stories, dealing with a midlife crisis that looks pretty standard at the time. But think about it, her entire life gets hijacked by a husband who lies to her about literally everything until she's already standing in the blast radius. By the time she realizes something is seriously wrong, the money is already in play. Walt's not just cooking a little meth on the side, he has hundreds of thousands in cash, enemies, and a secret double life that's way past the point of no return. The danger is real, the cartel is real, and the DEA is already circling her family without her even knowing why. The timing of her discovery is brutal. She doesn't catch him on day one with a burner phone and a vague excuse. She finds out when he's deep in remission, still cooking, and already attached to that cash like it's his legacy. That's the first big red flag for how unlucky she is. She gets all of the consequences and almost none of the control. Look at her options. Divorce him? Sounds obvious, right? But here's the thing. The second she knows that money is drug money, any divorce lawyer, any judge, any ears agent can connect her to financial crimes. She risks losing the house, the kids, and maybe her freedom just for trying to get away. Turn him in? Also sounds simple, until you realize that admitting what she knows instantly makes her a co-conspirator. She's already lied about gambling winnings, she's already touched the cash. To be fair, she didn't sign up for this. But the law doesn't really care about intent when you've helped hide millions. So she does the thing that seems smart, she launders the money. The car wash, the fake gambling story, the cooked books. Every move she makes to protect her kids pulls her deeper into the criminal web that Walt spun without her consent. It's not just morally messy, it's legally a trap. And then the universe keeps twisting the knife. Marie's confrontation about the money is a perfect example. Skylar's cornered at that dinner table, watching Hank and Marie celebrate the supposed gambling windfall. One wrong word and she blows up Walt, herself, and the kid's entire future in one shot. She has to lie convincingly to the DEA agent sitting across from her, who also happens to be family. No safe exit. Later, when Walt stages that infamous phone call during the house standoff, it sounds like he's rescuing her. He calls her stupid, blames everything on himself, makes her look like a terrified victim. Great, right? Except that rescue also locks in a legal narrative where she's complicit but helpless, a woman who knew something and stayed anyway. The call protects her from prison, but it also erases her agency and cements her as the woman who let Heisenberg happen. Hear me out. Skylar absolutely makes questionable choices. She cheats, she lies, she launders, but the scale of Walt's deception and the timing of her knowledge mean that by the time she can choose, every path is mined. Speak up, and you burn. Stay quiet, and you drown. Try to steer the ship, and you're suddenly the co-captain of a cartel-funded enterprise. So if Jesse is unlucky because fate keeps throwing him into the fire, Skylar is unlucky because fate waits until the whole house is burning before even letting her see the flames. And the show doesn't stop there. If you think her choices are bleak, wait until you look at the people who don't even get a choice at all, the ones who walk into Walt's orbit once and never walk back out. And that brings us to the real gut punch, the people who never even signed up for this war. If Jesse and Skylar are at least in the blast zone by choice, Marie, Walt Jr., and Holly are just standing on the sidewalk when the bomb goes off. Marie first, the purple queen of denial. At the time, she thinks she's married to the hero and related to the struggling, slightly pathetic chemistry teacher. She trusts Hank's instincts, she trusts Skylar's judgment, and she builds her whole sense of safety on those two pillars. Think about it, her cop husband is literally hunting the monster who, from her perspective, ruined his career and his body, and that monster turns out to be the brother-in-law she's been inviting over for dinner. The revelation in Ozymandias isn't just a twist, it's a total identity collapse for her. Hank's career, wrecked by Heisenberg. Hank's trauma and paralysis, also tied to Heisenberg. The family tension, Skylar's weird behavior, the money questions, all of it suddenly points back to Walt. It becomes obvious that the man who destroyed Hank's life was sitting at every birthday, every barbecue. From Marie's angle, that's not just betrayal, it's cosmic bad luck. She didn't miss the clues, she never even knew there were clues to look for. Walt Jr. gets hit in a different way. He spends almost the entire series in the dark, protected, or that's what the adults tell themselves. To be fair, he's a teenager dealing with his dad's cancer, his parents' separation, and basic high school chaos. The suspicious stuff around Walt gets filtered into half-truths. Dad's at treatment, dad's stressed, dad's having a hard time. So when the real story finally breaks, it doesn't land as a slow, tragic slide. It lands like a car crash. Remember that brutal moment when he calls 911 on Walt and physically shields Skylar? From his point of view, the switch flips in a single afternoon. loving, flawed father to violent criminal whose money is literally soaked in Hank's blood. Here's the thing, because he never saw the buildup, it feels less like his dad changed and more like everyone lied to him for years. That's not just family drama, that's his entire childhood being retroactively rewritten. And then there's Holly, who might be the purest symbol of undeserved fallout in the whole show. She's a baby. She has no agency, no bad choices, no suspicious behavior, and yet she's scooped up into Walt's desperate escape plan, crying mama in the front seat while he's on the run. She becomes a prop, a living hostage to force Skylar's compliance and buy Walt time. That staged phone call with Skylar? Holly is right there in the apartment, a silent pawn while Walt weaponizes his own villain persona to clear Skylar legally. It's clever, sure, but still, another missed opportunity for basic human decency. Crime literally rewrites the story of her infancy. One day she'll grow up and learn that her first Christmas photos are time-stamped right next to DA investigations and money laundering. Hear me out. This is the show tipping its hand about how bad luck works in Breaking Bad. It doesn't stop at the people in the game. It radiates outward, into marriages, into kids' bedrooms, into baby monitors. You can be as straight-laced as Marie, as sheltered as Walt Jr., as innocent as Holly, and still get drafted into someone else's war. And if that feels harsh, wait until you look at the characters who aren't even family, who just happen to be standing in the wrong place when Heisenberg's shadow passes over them. That's where the universe of this show gets really cruel, and if that feels harsh for the bystanders, it gets even harsher for the people who actually try to be careful. Because in this universe, being thoughtful doesn't protect you. If anything, it just gives fate more to work with. Enter Nacho Varga. Nacho is the anti-Tuco. Calm, observant, soft-spoken. He's a cartel guy who actually thinks before he pulls the trigger, and from the very beginning in Better Call Saul, it's evident that he's trying to do damage control, not chaos. He keeps an eye on Tuco's rages, he shields low-level dealers when he can, and above all, he's desperate to keep his father's upholstery shop out of the game. A criminal who still calls his dad sir and begs him to stay clean? That's not your typical Salamanca soldier. But here's the thing. Being the one sane man in a room full of Salamancas is its own kind of death sentence. The Tuco plan is the perfect example. Nacho looks at this obvious red flag in the organization. Tuco's violent, coked out, unpredictable, so he does what any rational person in an irrational world might do. He tries to quietly remove the problem. No bloodbath. No turf war. Just a setup that gets Tuco arrested and off the streets. On paper, that's a good deed for everyone. Safer dealers, safer civilians, even a safer cartel. Think about it. In any normal crime story, that's the smart play, maybe even the heroic one. But in this universe, it backfires instantly. Tuco's taken off the board, sure, but now the Salamancas are suddenly staring at the board a lot closer. They get suspicious. They dig. And Gus Fring, watching from his side, spots a useful, desperate man who just proved he's willing to betray his own boss. So Nacho ends up in the worst possible spot, right in the middle. On one side, the Salamancas, who will torture his father if they ever see the betrayal. On the other, Gus, who literally swaps out his heart meds and turns Nacho's own body into a ticking leash. Every choice he makes after that isn't really a choice, it's his dad's life, held up like a gun to his head. To be fair, Nacho still fights for slivers of control. He sabotages Hector's pills, he plays dumb, he looks for exits that never appear, but still, another missed opportunity for the universe to cut someone a break. Every careful move just tightens the trap, which brings us to the desert. Nacho's final mission is a performance. Gus scripts a fake confession to protect his own operation, the Salamancas demand blood, and Nacho walks out knowing exactly how this ends. Hear me out. It's one of the only times in this whole universe where a doomed man grabs back a tiny bit of agency. He flips the script mid-speech, admits what he did to Hector, calls out every Salamanca to their face, and chooses to shoot himself rather than give them the satisfaction. It's powerful, it's dignified, and it's still a corpse in the sand. Put him next to Jesse, next to Hank, and you see the pattern. Competent, morally conflicted men who try at least some of the time to do the right thing. Jesse refuses to kill Gale, wants out of the game, gets Andrea murdered. Hank won't back down from investigating Heisenberg, gets paralyzed, then executed in the desert. Nacho tries to protect his father and neutralize Tuco, ends up a pawn between Gus and the Salamancas. The universe in this world doesn't reward effort. It punishes hesitation, empathy, second thoughts. If you're not Alan like Walt or Gus, you're exposed. And if you think Nacho's ending is brutal, wait until you look at the characters who don't even get a last speech, who are wiped off the board by a single unlucky moment that no one could have planned for. But every once in a while, this universe does something even crueler than killing you. It lets you live. And nobody embodies that uncomfortable win better than Kim Wexler. Kim's arc is basically a case study in how a brilliant person can talk herself into disaster. She starts as the hyper-competent lawyer, grinding her way up from the mailroom, the one who actually respects the rules. Then she meets Jimmy McGill's chaos, and slowly, you watch her rewire her own moral compass. The cons start small, like the tequila scam days. Fun, victimless, right? But think about it, every time she bends a rule and nothing bad happens, that's a clue. The universe is teaching her the wrong lesson. The first big red flag is the car accident. She's overworked, juggling Mesa Verde, pro bono cases, and Jimmy's drama, and she literally falls asleep at the wheel. No cartel, no hitman, just her body quitting on her. At the time, it feels like a freak event. But here's the thing, that crash is the show quietly saying, you're not built for this pace, and if you keep pushing, something worse is coming. She misses that message completely. Then you get the Lalo era. Kim marching into that hotel room, reading Lalo like a hostile witness, is one of the boldest moves in the whole franchise. You're watching it thinking, this is how people die on this show. She's a civilian, standing in front of a cartel psychopath who has already killed without blinking. It is so obvious how this could end with her on the floor, another body in the game. But somehow, she walks out. No bullet, no kidnapping, just more adrenaline. Kim's bad luck keeps almost catching up. The potential bar complaints, the sandpiper scam, the constant risk that one of their lies collapses in court. Her entire career is dangling over a shredder. And yet, instead of a gunshot or a Dia raid, her breaking point is emotional. She finally pulls the emergency brake. She leaves Jimmy, drops the law, and vanishes into that gray Florida life. On paper, she's one of the lucky ones. She survives. She escapes the cartel blast radius. She's not in a barrel, not in a hole in the desert. But hear me out. Is that really mercy, or is it a different sentence? Kim's punishment is waking up every day knowing Howard died because she wanted the thrill of destroying him. No blaze of glory, no last words, just guilt, paperwork, and Miracle Whip. And this is where she stands apart from people like Nacho, Jane, or Hank. They never get the chance to slam on the brakes. Their unlucky moments are final. Kim gets to walk away, but only by choosing a life that feels like self-imposed exile. It's less about cosmic fairness and more about narrative design. She's the rare character who recognizes the pattern and steps off the board. The question is, as we move into the truly doomed cases, whether that makes her the luckiest person in this universe, or the one stuck living with the clearest view of how cursed it really is. And that's where the bigger question kicks in. If Skylar stepping off the board is a choice, then what about everyone who never even sees the board? Are all these unlucky breaks in Breaking Bad supposed to feel like some cosmic joke, or is it just the writers twisting the knife every time you start to feel safe? Because think about it. Vince Gilligan has said over and over that he's obsessed with consequences, with this almost moral math where actions come back around. Walt chooses pride, people suffer. Jesse chooses crime, people die. On paper, that sounds pretty straightforward. You sin, you pay. But here's the thing. The show keeps throwing in moments that feel way too cruel and way too specific to just be neat moral punishment. The plane crash over Albuquerque? That's not Walt lied, so two planes collided in any obvious way. That's an air traffic controller who happens to be Jane's dad, who happens to be shattered by her death, who happens to make one catastrophic mistake at exactly the wrong second. That's not karma. That feels almost supernaturally unlucky for an entire city that never even heard of Heisenberg. Same with Hank. At the time, he's the guy hunting the devil in plain sight. Yet his whole investigation is sabotaged by timing. He misses Walt in the RV because he has to take a bathroom call. He's literally sitting across from Gus at Los Pollos Hermanos and doesn't see the monster. He only survives the cousins because of an anonymous warning call, which also leaves him paralyzed and sidelined just when he's closest to the truth. Is that moral causality? Or a universe that just likes watching him get knocked down every time he stands up? This is why fans still argue, is Breaking Bad nihilistic or moralistic? Does the universe have rules, or is it just chaos in a cool hat? On one hand, you can track a clear line from Walt's choices to Jane, to Jane's dad, to the planes. On the other hand, Jane rolling onto her back during the overdose, or Gail opening the door that one night. Or Andrea answering the door for Todd, those feel like tiny, brutal coin flips. To be fair, you can read them as this is what happens when you swim with sharks. But still, another missed opportunity for the universe to show even a sliver of mercy. And hear me out, that tension is the point. The show uses bad luck as a constant red flag that you cannot predict who dies based on who deserves it or who's competent. Mike plans everything and still gets taken out by one impatient Walt. Nacho in the wider universe does everything right and still gets boxed in by a single unpredictable variable. So as we move into the truly doomed cases, don't just see a list of tragedies. See an investigation into what kind of world Breaking Bad is asking you to believe in and who it decides to crush to make that world feel real. If those people are the ones the universe chews up, Walter White is the guy it keeps bailing out. Over and over. To the point where it stops feeling like coincidence and starts feeling rigged. Think about it. The RV in the desert. This should have been the end of the show. Walt and Jesse stranded, battery dead, no water, no way out. And then Walt, with lung cancer, just happens to MacGyver a makeshift battery that works perfectly on the first try. No explosion, no corrosion issue, no well. Jesse, we die now. The bad luck is the breakdown. The good luck is that the universe quietly hands Walt the exact conditions where his chemistry trick actually saves them. Same pattern with Tuco. They're in the hideout. Tuco's wired, Jesse's half dead, Hector's ringing that bell like a fire alarm. All it takes is one wrong move and Walt's brains are on the floor. Instead, Tuco steps just close enough to the fulminated mercury, reacts just the wrong way, and the explosion that should kill Walt mostly doesn't. To be fair, Walt is smart enough to bring the stuff, but here's the thing, his brilliant plan only works because Tuco's exactly that reckless in exactly that moment. Look at the plane crash. Walt lets Jane die, Jessie spirals, her dad relapses and goes to work as an air traffic controller. The timing has to line up perfectly for those two planes to collide over Walt's city, over Walt's house, dumping pink bears and human remains into his pool. Walt walks away physically untouched. Hundreds of strangers pay the bill for one man's secret. And then you have the Hank and Gus near misses. The RV stakeout where Hank is seconds away from opening the door and he gets a phone call about Marie's accident. The Los Pollos Hermanos meeting where Hank literally has Gus and Walt in the same frame and decides this polite restaurant owner can't possibly be the guy. Every time Hank is about to land a clue, something tiny knocks him off course. Another missed opportunity. A lot of Walt's so-called genius is just riding that wave. Victor gets seen at the chemical supply store, so Gus panics and fast-tracks Gale's murder, handing Walt the leverage he needs. The cousins ambush Hank, leaving him paralyzed and sidelined just when he's getting too close. Walt finds the rice and cigarette just in time to keep Jesse from killing him. Because Saul's guy happened to plant it cleanly. Suspicious pattern, right? It starts to feel parasitic. Every time Walt survives, someone else absorbs the damage. Jane dies, Jesse breaks. Gale dies, Gus loses his perfect lab. Hank lives the ambush, but his body and career never fully recover. Walt's luck is like a shield made out of other people's misfortune. So if the universe keeps choosing Walt to walk away, what does that make Jesse, Hank, Jane, Andrea, Mike? Are they just designated sacrifices so Heisenberg's story can keep going? Hear me out, because the next characters we're about to look at make that question way harder to ignore. So let's actually try to measure this curse. If Walt keeps walking away while everyone else pays the price, Who, objectively, has it worst? Think about it like a totally unscientific, deeply unfair bad luck scorecard. We give points for 4 things. 1. How careful they were. 2. How avoidable their fate should have been. 3. How much collateral damage hits them or radiates out from them. And 4. How many times luck specifically turns against them at the exact wrong second. Start with Gale. On paper, he's cautious. Meticulous lab notes, safety protocols, vegan tea in the morning. He picks the safe criminal to work for, the guy with a chain of chicken restaurants. But here's the thing. Victor gets spotted at the chemical supply, Gus has to move fast, and suddenly, Gale's entire life is decided by one panic calculus in a super lab. 1 bullet, 0 warning. High care, medium agency, absurdly unlucky exit. Jane is different. She's not careful, but her fate is almost comically concentrated into one night. She relapses at the exact moment Jesse has money, power, and a way out. She rolls onto her back during the overdose. Walt just happens to walk in right then. Every variable lines up in the worst possible configuration. You can't call that anything but a one-night catastrophe that feels way more like cosmic cruelty than a long chain of choices. Hank? He's the king of timing disasters. The RV stakeout bathroom break. The cousins ambushing him minutes after that anonymous warning call. Missing Gus at Los Pollos because he's looking at the wrong guy. Over and over, he's competent and aggressive, but the universe keeps moving the finish line 2 inches away from his hand. To be fair, his ego blinds him, but still, another missed opportunity, every single time. Then there's Mike. Hyper-competent. Paranoid in a good way. He survives decades in this world by seeing every angle. And yet one rushed meeting at the river, one moment of trusting Walt to just hand over a bag and walk away, and that's it. One fatal oversight. On our scorecard, his careful score is maxed. His luck turned on him score spikes right at the end. Andrea might be the purest collateral damage. She doesn't choose the game chooses her, because she knows Jesse. No warning, no bargaining, just Todd on her porch. Her agency score is basically 0, which makes her bad luck rating feel off the charts. Nacho, over in Better Call Saul, lives in a now-in scenario. Every smart move just traps him between Gus and the Salamancas. Every escape route is a dead end disguised as a choice. Jesse is the long-term version of that every time he tries to get out. A new coincidence, a new body, a new Walt scheme drags him back. He's the show's designated punching bag. Is this ranking subjective? Absolutely. But thinking about agency versus cruelty like this makes it painfully evident how often the writers stack the deck against specific people. In the next sections, we're going to argue for the real top contenders on this scorecard. Who do you think got the worst deal? Hear me out before you hit the comments, because some of these cases are brutal. So let's talk about the obvious candidate for most cursed human in Albuquerque. Because once you stack it all up, Jesse Pinkman doesn't just have bad luck. It's like the universe saw him, shrugged, and said, yeah, that one. Punching bag. Start with the big traumas. Jane's death. You watch him go from messy but hopeful to absolutely shattered in a single night. From his point of view, it's simple. He relapsed, they used, she overdosed, and he woke up too late. He never knows Walt was in the room, never knows that one silent decision turned a survivable overdose into a coffin. For Jesse, it's just cosmic punishment. No clue that his partner literally watched the love of his life die. Then Brock. The kid he genuinely cares about suddenly ends up poisoned, and all the clues point straight at Gus. Jesse's forced into this impossible position where he has to choose a side in a war he didn't start. But here's the thing. The real architect is Walt, again, manipulating Jesse's empathy like it's just another lab tool. Jesse walks around carrying guilt for bringing danger into Andrea and Brock's lives when the Ryson story was scripted around him. And it doesn't stop. Andrea's execution might be the single cruelest beat in the entire show. Jesse's chained up like an animal, dragged outside, and made to watch Todd casually shoot Andrea on her own doorstep. No bargaining, no last-minute save, just a message. Think about it, she dies not because of something she did, but because Jesse once dared to care about her. On top of that, his parents basically write him off. They kick him out, sell his house out from under him, and every interaction is this quiet reminder that, in their eyes, he's a walking red flag. To be fair, Jesse has made a lot of bad choices, but every time he tries to pivot, the show slaps his hand away. He gets clean at rehab, starts to process Jane, and then Walt reels him back in with the "I need you" routine. He tries to leave town with Saul's vacuum guy. Caught, he cooperates with Adia, finally deciding to burn Walt down. He ends up in a pit, literally enslaved by Jack's gang. This is the pattern. Jesse reaches for daylight, and the plot yanks him into a darker room. It's not just the beatings, the near deaths, the meth lab torture. It's the psychological wreckage. He blames himself for Jane, for Gail, for Brock, for Andrea, for every kid even remotely touched by the drug trade. So much of that blood is on Walt's hands, but Jesse is the one who can't sleep. Yes, he escapes to Alaska. New name, new truck, fresh snow. But still, another missed opportunity for actual peace, because almost everyone he's ever loved is either dead, traumatized, or permanently out of reach. If you measure bad luck as cumulative suffering over time, Jesse's life reads like a long, cruel experiment. How much can one person endure before they finally snap? And here's the uncomfortable question we'll get to next. Is anyone's misfortune in this universe actually worse than that? Or does Jesse quietly win the Misery Olympics? So if Jesse might win the Misery Olympics, what do you even do with Hank Schrader? Because Hank isn't just unlucky in a general, life is hard way. His bad luck is targeted. It shows up at the exact moments when he's about to win. Think about it. The ARV. That is Hank's case in a nutshell. He tracks down the rolling meth lab, corners it. He is literally feet away from Walt and Jesse. And what stops him? A fake phone call about Marie being in the hospital. Pure timing. Pure manipulation. He walks away from the biggest arrest of his career because the universe hands Walt the perfect excuse at the perfect second. It's not just a missed clue, it's a stolen victory. You see this pattern everywhere. Early Heisenberg leads? Hank is on them. The gas masks from Walt's school, the blue meth, the Tuco connection, all of it. Some of the evidence is circumstantial, some of it is obvious, but still, another missed opportunity. Every time he gets close, something yanks him sideways. The cousin's ambush is the ugliest example. He gets that anonymous warning call. He survives only because of that timing, but the price is brutal. Paralysis. PTSD, and his entire sense of self shattered right when Heisenberg is peaking. Here's the thing about those injuries. They don't just hurt Hank physically, they derail his momentum. At the time when he should be leading the Heisenberg hunt, he's stuck in bed, traumatized, obsessing over minerals. He has to rebuild his body, his confidence, his instincts. While Walt is out there expanding an empire. It's like the clock is ticking louder in every scene, and Hank is forced to play catch-up with his own brain. And the cruelest twist? Hank's best detective work happens after he's sidelined. He's not the big dia hero anymore. He's the guy on the toilet reading Leaves of Grass. That bathroom epiphany is both his greatest triumph and his worst curse. One inscription, one to my other favorite WW, and suddenly every red flag he ever ignored snaps into place. To be fair, it's brilliant work. He reconstructs Heisenberg from scraps, working unofficially with Gomez, no full dia backing, just gut and pattern recognition. But here's the thing, that's exactly when the universe cashes in his bad luck. In the desert, Hank finally wins. He arrests Walt. He has Heisenberg in cuffs. Years of missed clues, injuries, and humiliation all pay off in one perfect moment. And then he dies. Not in failure, but in unrecognized success, buried in a hole no one will ever mark as the place Hank Schrader solved the puzzle. So if you define bad luck as the universe specifically targeting your moments of triumph, Hank might actually be the most cursed character on the show. But hear me out. What if the universe in Breaking Bad doesn't just hate individuals, it hates a certain type of person most of all? Jane is where the show's bad luck engine stops feeling abstract and starts feeling personal. Because with her, you're not just watching a character die, you're watching an entire future get erased in one night that should have just been a stupid, survivable mistake. Jane's trajectory. Before that night, the clues are all pointing up. She's in recovery, she's going to meetings, she's drawing, painting, making these detailed tattoo designs. You can tell she actually has an artistic lane that isn't just tortured addict. She's got her own apartment, her dad's trying awkwardly to keep her on track. Then she meets Jesse, and it's messy, but it's real. She loves him, and he loves her, in that chaotic, codependent way that still has genuine tenderness baked into it. This isn't some random junkie stereotype. It's a fragile attempt to rebuild a life. It's someone right on the edge of turning things around. Then the relapse. Yes, she chooses to use again. You can't dodge that. But here's the thing. Relapse by itself is not a death sentence. People in recovery slip all the time. With an ambulance, a roommate who calls 911, or a dad who checks in 10 minutes earlier, this is a terrifying scare. Not a series wrap. In most worlds, she wakes up in a hospital bed, horrified, furious, maybe ashamed, but alive, with another shot at getting it right. And that's where the bad luck gets viciously specific. It's not just that she overdoses, it's that tiny physical detail she rolls onto her back. That one motion turns a dangerous high into a fatal one. On her side, she probably survives. On her back, she's vulnerable to choking. It's such a small, almost boring movement, but it's the whole difference between rock bottom and autopsy. Now add the most cursed variable of all, Walter White in the room at that exact moment. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong man. If Walt shows up 5 minutes earlier, he shakes them awake, screams, calls someone. If he never comes by, maybe Jesse stirs, maybe Jane coughs and rolls over. Instead, the universe lines it up perfectly so that the one person who walks in is the one person whose warped logic tells him to just watch. Think about it. Out of all the timelines where Jane survives, we're stuck in the one where she rolls the wrong way, with the wrong witness. In the one window where her dad isn't there. It's almost suspicious how perfectly cruel that alignment is. If you measure bad luck by how much potential gets wiped out in how little time, Jane's death is one of the most brutally unfair in the whole franchise. Years of recovery, talents, a maybe future with Jesse, gone in seconds. Not because she was doomed, but because every tiny variable missed in the worst possible direction. And if Jane's tragedy is about a single night erasing a life, Jesse's story is what happens when the universe doesn't kill you, it just keeps you around to suffer. And that brings us to the people who don't even get the twisted privilege of spiraling like Jesse. They don't make a choice, they don't get a rock bottom montage, they just get selected. Almost like the universe is drawing names out of a hat. Gail first. The tea drinking, karaoke singing, vegan chemist who reads Walt Whitman and gets genuinely excited about perfect lab ventilation. On paper, he's the safest guy in the entire meth operation. No street work, no guns, no turf wars. He just wants to make immaculate product in what he thinks is a controlled environment with a boss who respects procedure. Think about it. Gail's crime is basically working for the wrong employer and being too good at his job. He's not out there robbing trains or poisoning kids. He's organizing his beakers by size and making sure the lab has a proper wash station. It's almost boring, and that's exactly why his death hits so hard. He doesn't die because he crossed someone or pulled a weapon. He dies because Gus needs a lever to pull on Walt. The apartment. The door. Jesse with a gun and tears in his eyes. Gail has no clue what's coming until the second he opens that door. No red flag, no suspicious car tailing him, no ominous phone call. At the time, the only odd thing in his life is that his lab schedule changed. That's it. He is a human sacrifice to a power struggle he doesn't even understand. Andrea is the same pattern, just in a different neighborhood. A young mother in recovery, trying to keep Brock safe, trying to do right after a messed up past. Her biggest mistake? Answering the door for the nice guy who says he knows Jesse. She doesn't cook, she doesn't deal, she barely even brushes against Walt's world except through the person she cares about. But here's the thing, caring about Jesse in this universe is like painting a target on your forehead. Andrea is pulled into danger solely because every cartel and neo-Nazi in a 50-mile radius figures out Jesse will do anything for her and Brock. To be fair, that's not stupidity on her part, that's just the show weaponizing basic human attachment. She doesn't see it coming either. Todd shows up, polite as always, and Andrea steps outside, confused but not scared. No time to run, no time to fight, no time to bargain. One sentence, one gunshot, and she's gone before she even knows what she's being punished for. Hear me out. If bad luck is being randomly picked as a pressure point in someone else's story, Gail and Andrea are near the top of the list. They're not players on the board, they're the pieces other people knock over to send a message. And compared to what's coming for characters who actually know they're in the game, that kind of blindside might be the cruelest fate of all. And here's where it gets really unsettling. On a first watch, a lot of those blindsides feel like pure chaos. Jane choking to death, Gail getting executed in his own doorway, Hank dying in the desert. It all plays like the universe just rolled bad dice 3 times in a row. But think about it on a rewatch. Suddenly, all that random bad luck starts looking eerily organized. You notice Jane's addiction history baked into almost every scene with her, the way she's always one trigger away from relapse. You see Hank's love of risk, the macho bravado that has him charging into Tuco's territory alone. You see Jesse's soft heart, how every time he tries to be kind, it becomes a red flag that puts him in someone's crosshairs. Yes, part of that is just you knowing how it ends. You can't unsee Gail humming in his lab and not also see the bullet that's coming. But here's the thing. The show quietly lays out the clues so that on rewatch, their fates feel thematically locked in. Jane's need for control and escape, Hank's ego and tunnel vision, Jesse's guilt and loyalty. None of it guarantees what happens, but it makes what happens feel weirdly appropriate. That's the duality that makes their bad luck so haunting. At the time, it feels arbitrary. A phone call here, a relapse there, a cousin with an axe showing up 10 minutes earlier than expected. On the second pass, it feels almost scripted by the universe. Not just this could happen, but of course, it would happen to this person, in this way. As if the world of Breaking Bad was always going to find a way to break them along their weakest fault line. And that puts you, the viewer, in a Hank Schrader position. You're seeing patterns the characters can't. Hank misses the clues about Walt because he's trapped in the moment, stuck inside his own assumptions. To be fair, you can't pause your life and rewind the last season either. But on rewatch, the Walt puzzle is obvious to you the way Hank's fate is obvious on his drive to the desert. You know the bathroom epiphany is coming. You know the warning call from the cousins is a setup for a lifetime of pain. Pattern interrupt for a second. Imagine if Hank could binge his own life like you binged this show. How many random injuries, near misses, and suspicious coincidences would suddenly line up into a giant neon arrow pointing at Heisenberg? Hear me out. That's the broader trick the series pulls with luck and foreshadowing. It keeps you emotionally hooked because every unlucky twist feels both like another missed opportunity to escape and, at the same time, the only way this could have gone. And as we move into the next set of characters, that tension between chance and inevitability just gets sharper. And that tension gets brutal when you zoom in. Because a lot of these characters don't get destroyed by huge dramatic choices. They get wrecked by tiny, almost boring moments that go 1 degree the wrong way. Start with Jane. The overdose. Walt is in the room. He could roll her onto her side. He even starts to. His arm twitches, his face breaks, and for a split second you think, he's going to save her. That's the fork in the road. One tiny movement, one basic recovery position you learn in a CPR class, and not only does Jane live, but Jesse's entire timeline explodes in a different direction. But here's the thing. Walt's resentment and fear nudge him toward the worst possible outcome. He freezes, he watches, and the universe quietly locks in Jesse's lifelong trauma. Then you've got Gail and Victor. On paper, Gail is safe, hidden, Gus's long game, but Victor gets seen at the chemical supply store. Just one witness, one errand, that's it. Suddenly, Gus panics about exposure, accelerates the plan, and Gail becomes a human sacrifice to keep Walt and Jesse alive. Think about it. If Victor doesn't get spotted, Gus likely waits, Gail takes over the lab cleanly. And Mike never has to drag Jesse into that nightmare hit. Another missed opportunity for everyone to walk away. Hank and Jack's crew, same pattern. Hank actually wins in the desert. He arrests Walt. He's proud, he's stubborn, and he makes that fateful call to Marie instead of immediately calling off Jack. To be fair, at the time he thinks he's wrapping the case, not triggering a massacre. But that tiny delay that needs to savor the victory gives Jack just enough time to arrive. One phone call in the other order, and Hank dies an old man with a retirement beard. Mike has one of these too, the park meet with Lydia. He's meticulous, he's cautious, he's done. All he needs is her list of names. But he waits. He gives Walt time to spiral about loose ends. That pause becomes the gap Walt walks through with a gun. If Mike demands the list immediately, or uses someone else as a go-between, he's on a beach somewhere, not bleeding out by a river. And Jesse? Jesse is the king of almost escapes. He's ready to leave town with Ed long before things hit rock bottom. Cash in hand, bag packed. Then Walt dangles one more cook, one more emotional hook, and Jesse stays. That single missed van ride cost him years of torture. Hear me out. This is why the show feels both thrilling and cruel. The margin of error is microscopic. It's not just the big "I'm the one who knocks" speeches, it's the half-second hesitations, the calls made in the wrong order. The relapse that happens on the wrong night. You watch and you can't help connecting it to your own life. That time you missed the flight that ended up delayed for hours. That one text you sent too late. We've all had those moments where timing or chance saved us or hurt us, and Breaking Bad weaponizes that feeling. So when we talk about unlucky characters in this universe, we're not just talking about people who made bad choices. We're talking about people who got destroyed by these invisible pivots, where fate, personality, and one suspicious coincidence all line up against them. And as we move to the next set of characters, that razor-thin line between survival and disaster only gets sharper and honestly harder to watch. But hear me out, because before we start treating every character like the universe's chew toy, we need a quick fairness caveat. Not all misery in Breaking Bad is cosmic targeting. Some of it is just people making absolutely terrible calls and then acting shocked when the bill shows up. Take Walter, Tuco, the Salamancas. These guys aren't unlucky in the way Jesse or Hank often feel. They're reckless, violent, arrogant, and they practically invite disaster. Think about it. Walt doesn't trip and fall into meth. He looks at his terminal diagnosis, his ex-student, and a mobile meth lab and goes, "Yeah, this is the move." That first cook in the ARV isn't bad luck. It's a deliberate pivot into a world where bad luck suddenly has way more ways to kill you. Tuco is the same energy, just louder. This is a guy who beats one of his own dealers to death in front of Walt and Jesse over a tiny product issue. That's not the universe being cruel. That's a walking red flag begging to be taken out by the DIA, a rival cartel. Or his own heart rate. And the Salamancas, Lalo, the cousins, Hector, they operate on pure pride and intimidation. It's evident from the moment the cousins crawl to the shrine that they are not planning for retirement, they're planning for a glorious, bullet-filled exit. Now compare that with choices that clearly matter more than chance. Walt deciding to cook is one. Hank choosing to go after the cousins alone is another. He gets that mysterious warning call, steps out of his car, and instead of waiting for backup, he walks straight into an ambush. That isn't fate pulling the trigger, that's Hank's ego and instincts teaming up at the worst possible time, or Jesse using again with Jane. At the time, it feels like a private relapse, a sad little spiral in an apartment. But that choice cracks open the door for everything that follows. Walt walking in, the overdose, that one horrifying moment where Jane rolls onto her back and suddenly it's not just addiction anymore, it's life or death. The universe supplies the timing, Jesse supplied the vulnerability. To be fair, recognizing these choices doesn't erase the role of luck. It just shows how the show layers human flaws on top of an already hostile universe. The most tragic characters aren't the purely unlucky ones or the purely reckless ones. They're the ones whose bad choices intersect with bad timing in exactly the wrong way, creating disasters neither factor alone would have caused. And that's the balance we need to keep. We're not spinning a conspiracy board where fate personally hates everyone. We're watching how pride, fear, addiction, and one missed moment collide. And as we move into the next characters, that collision gets even uglier because some of them really do try to do better and the universe still slams the door in their face. And that slammed door isn't random. It's part of a pattern that runs through the entire show. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The universe of Breaking Bad feels tilted, like the table is slanted just enough so the worst people keep their footing while everyone else slides off the edge. Look at the top tier monsters. Walt, Gus, even guys like Todd and Jack. They walk through situations that should be instant death. Walt survives the Tuco Desert standoff, the cousins hit, Gus's suspicions, the cartel, and that insane crawl space moment where any normal person's life is just done. Gus builds an empire under the Diaz nose, shrugs off Hank's attention at Los Pollos Hermanos, and only dies because Walt pulls off a once-in-a-lifetime nursing home bomb plan. Think about it. For seasons, every suspicious clue, every red flag that should end them just barely misses. Timing saves them, other people's mistakes save them, the universe keeps flipping the coin their way. Now contrast that with the show's almost decent people. Jesse tries to go straight with Jane, to get clean, to start fresh with that New Zealand fantasy. What does he get? Jane's relapse timed perfectly with Walt showing up. One roll onto her back, one missed chance to save her, and his entire life caves in. When Jesse finally wants out, he lands in Andrea's orbit. She's kind, she's trying to raise Brock right, she's not a cartel player. And because Jesse once cooked for Walt, she gets executed on a porch she never should have died on. Hank is another perfect example. He's not a saint, but he's trying to do his job. Every time he gets close, bathroom break during the ARF stakeout. The cousins attack, leaving him paralyzed and sidelined right when he's heating up on the case. That bathroom epiphany with Gail's book comes seasons late, after a whole chain of missed chances and bad timing. It's almost darkly funny how the universe keeps yanking the football away from him. Gail, the gentle nerd who just wants to make perfect coffee and perfect meth in a lab that follows regulations, dies because Victor happens to be seen at the chemical supply store. Nacho over in Better Call Saul plans and plans and plans, only to be undone by one stray variable he can't control. To be fair, everyone makes choices, but here's the thing. When the monsters choose wrong, fate bails them out. When the more human ones reach for something better, fate grinds them down. That imbalance is where the real moral horror lives. The show doesn't just say bad things happen to good people. It quietly suggests that, in this world, power and ruthlessness are a kind of armor. While empathy is a liability, it refuses to comfort you with the idea that virtue equals safety. You keep waiting for the universe to step in to correct the scales, and it just doesn't. And that's what sets up the real question. In a universe this broken, where the game is rigged and the dice are loaded, who actually gets hit the hardest? Who is the most unlucky character of all? Because once we stack their stories side by side, one name starts to look almost painfully obvious, so once you stack them side by side, the pattern is brutal. Different lives, different choices, but the same loaded dice. And when you really sit with it, a few names keep floating to the top. You've got Hank, the guy who keeps getting undercut by timing. The RV stakeout bathroom break, the cousins attack right after he finally decides to stand down, the desert shootout where he wins the gunfight and still loses his life because Uncle Jack shows up at the worst possible second. His whole story is a highlight reel of almost catching the big fish, only to have the universe yank the line away. Then there's Jane. One night. One relapse. One unlucky roll onto her back. At the time, it just feels like a tragic overdose, but think about it. One tiny physical movement is the difference between her waking up with a hangover and never waking up again. Gail and Andrea fall into that same cursed orbit. Gail builds the safest version of Walt's empire and gets sacrificed because Victor is spotted at a chemical supply. Andrea does everything right after Jesse, then gets executed on her own porch just because she loves the wrong guy. And if you've watched Better Call Saul, Nacho might be the purest no-win scenario in the whole universe. He plays it smart, plans every angle, and the cartel still boxes him into a choice between his father's life and his own. No matter what he does, someone bleeds. But here's the thing. When you zoom out and ask, who does the universe pick on the most consistently across the entire story? The answer almost has to be Jesse Pinkman. Hear me out. Jesse doesn't just get hit once. The bad luck compounds. Jane dies in front of him. Andrea is murdered because of him. Brock is poisoned to manipulate him. Every person he genuinely loves becomes a pressure point for someone else to push. It's like the show turns his heart into a map of weak spots and hands it to the worst people possible. Anytime he tries to pull away, reality slaps him. He goes to rehab, starts to clean up, and then finds out Walt watched Jane die. He tries to get out of the game with the money laundering buyout. and the feds swoop in through Hank at Andrea's. He agrees to cook for the Nazis to stop the torture, and they still keep him chained in that compound, treated like a lab animal. Every attempt at doing better is punished harder than his actual crimes. To be fair, if you weight pure innocence the most, you probably crown Jane or Andrea. If you focus on missed professional triumphs, Hank has a very strong case. But still, another missed opportunity for the universe to show any mercy is always landing on Jesse's head. So yeah, my vote for most unlucky goes to Jesse Pinkman. But this is where I throw it to you. Who's at the top of your list, and what's the one scene that seals it? Because once you start ranking this stuff, you realize the real argument might be who the universe hates second most. So if Jesse's the king of bad luck, why does that hit so hard when you're watching? It's not just because the show is cruel, it's because you know a Jesse. And if you're honest, you're a little scared you might be one. Think about it. Everyone knows that person who keeps getting wrecked by timing. Wrong job market, wrong relationship, wrong place when the metaphorical cousins roll into town. They're not evil, they're not stupid. But the universe keeps handing them the worst possible dice roll. Breaking Bad just turns that everyday feeling up to 11. Here's the thing, the show is constantly whispering that doing the right thing doesn't guarantee anything. Hank does his job, pushes through trauma, hunts Heisenberg like it's his life's purpose, and what does he get? A bathroom epiphany that comes years too late, and a desert grave. Jane tries to get clean, relapses once at the exact wrong time, rolls onto her back, and that's it. One unlucky angle, one silent man in the doorway, and her whole future is gone. That taps into a really specific anxiety. You can work hard, follow the rules, love your family, and the world can still be indifferent or flat out hostile. The show keeps throwing suspicious little reminders of that at you. Gale builds a safe, meticulous life around tea and lab notes, and he still ends up staring at a gun in his doorway because Victor happened to be spotted at a chemical supply store. At the time, it all looks like choices, but when you zoom out, you see how many of those choices are boxed in by awful luck. But here's the thing, it's not just a cosmic pity party. The show is also screaming at you about complacency. Small choices matter, ignored red flags matter. Walt doesn't become Heisenberg in one bad day. It's 1,000 tiny selfish decisions that only work because everyone around him keeps missing the obvious. Hank shrugs off the RV, the second phone, the $500,000 in cash joke. To be fair, he's blinded by ego and his idea of who Walt is. But still, another missed opportunity, and each one stacks with bad luck until you get a disaster nobody saw coming. So where do you see yourself in this universe? Are you a Walt, convinced you're the mastermind, blaming bad luck when your own choices explode? Are you a Jesse, feeling like every attempt to do better gets sabotaged by forces you can't control? A Hank, trusting your instincts but ignoring anything that doesn't fit your story? Or a Jane, a Gale, an Andrea? Someone who thinks they're on the edges, safely out of the blast radius, right up until they're not? Hear me out. The real power of these unlucky characters is that they stick with you after the episode ends. You start replaying your own near misses, your own desert moments, your own red flags you laughed off. And that's where I want you to stay as we head into the outro, arguing with yourself a little, questioning how much of your bad luck is fate. And how much is you walking past clues you really shouldn't ignore. So now it's your turn. If you had to pick one moment of bad luck in this whole universe that actually haunts you, what is it? Not just the sad scene, but the one that pops into your head days later when you're trying to sleep. Is it Jane's final breath? The way she rolls onto her back, that tiny, almost boring movement that turns a survivable overdose into a death sentence while Walt just stands there. Think about it. If she stays on her side, if she coughs, if Jesse wakes up 30 seconds earlier, their entire story branches in a different direction. Or maybe it's Hank in the desert. The phone call from Walt, the wrong drive, the wrong patch of sand, and suddenly the cousins. Tuco's legacy, Jack's crew, all that chaos collapses right on top of the one guy actually trying to do the right thing. At the time, it feels like a showdown. On rewatch, it feels like the universe tripping him at the finish line. Gale at the door is another one. He opens it with tea, with opera playing, with zero awareness that Victor being spotted at the chemical supply store just turned him into a target. To be fair, Gale thinks he's in a safe, controlled lab job. But here's the thing. One random witness, one plate number is taken down, and suddenly this sweet nerd is begging for his life in a hallway. Andrea on the porch might be the quietest, cruelest example. She has no clue she's on anybody's radar. She's not in the game, she's just adjacent to Jesse. A knock, a smile, a second of confusion, and then she's gone because of a chain of grudges she never even sees. How is that not one of the most obvious signs that in this world, proximity is a death sentence? Or maybe your moment is smaller. A missed phone call, a wrong turn, Jesse showing up at the ATM house on that exact night, Mike choosing that exact parking lot. Nacho switching out the pills and getting away with it until one tiny variable he can't control shows up later and unravels everything. Hear me out, sometimes the scariest bad luck is the stuff that looks boring on paper. I want you to re-watch some of these key episodes with that lens. Look for the tiny coincidences, the background timing quirks, the throwaway lines that decide who lives and who dies. How many clues did you miss because you were focused on Walt's big speeches? And in the comments, help build this out. Maybe you think Victor is secretly one of the unluckiest or Todd's uncle's crew. Or even some random DIA agent who walks into the wrong room at the wrong time. Drop your pick, explain why, and let's turn the comment section into a full bad luck map of this universe. Because once you start mapping it, you notice something even darker hiding under all that coincidence. Because once you start mapping it, you notice something even darker hiding under all that coincidence. Patterns. The universe of Breaking Bad is wired with patterns. And if you like this kind of slow burn pattern spotting analysis, this is where it gets really fun. Think about it. We just spent all this time on bad luck. But what happens when you overlay that with perception and bias? Hank isn't just unlucky, he's selectively blind. So a perfect follow-up is Hank's missed clues as a full psychological profile. Every red flag, every suspicious coincidence, every time his idea of Walt as harmless blocks the obvious answer sitting right in front of him. The lab equipment, the second cell phone, the ARV, the bathroom epiphany. It's not just that he missed them, it's that his brain edited them in real time. And that connects directly to what we've been talking about. In this universe, one tiny decision or one tiny assumption can get you killed. From there, you can branch into even bigger hidden structures. Walt and Jimmy, for example. On paper, they're total opposites, but here's the thing, both of them weaponize being underestimated. Both of them live double lives built on technicalities and loopholes. You could do a whole video just on the parallels between Saul's cheesy commercials and Walt's high school teacher persona, and how both are masks that let them move through the world without setting off any obvious alarms, or all the quiet death foreshadows. Jane's art, Gale's karaoke, Andrea's porch, Hank's rocks and minerals. At the time, they feel like character flavor. On a rewatch, they're basically countdown timers. Hear me out. A breakdown of every shot, every line, every color choice that quietly whispers this person is doomed long before the bullet or the overdose shows up. And if you really want to lean into the bad luck engine, you could track every near miss that kept Walt alive. The RV bathroom break, the cousin's phone call, Gus choosing Jesse over Walt for the ride along. Each one is another missed opportunity for the universe to just be done with him. To be fair, some of it is Walt's planning, but still, another missed opportunity for reality to correct itself. If that sounds like your kind of rabbit hole, stick around. Subscribe, hit whatever button you need to hit, or just let the next video autoplay and we'll keep pulling on these threads together. Because you're clearly the kind of fan who doesn't just watch, you notice. You remember the gas mask in episode 1. You remember Hank's offhand jokes. You connect the colors, the props, the throwaway lines.